All right, so we're here with Scott, and in this video, this is really exciting to have Scott on because Scott has now done. I think he's on his second subject to deal. I guess kind of his third if you count that equity partner deal that we did. I know Scott personally. He's here in my local market. We've partnered on one deal, and then through the coaching program, he's I've been involved in his second deal that he did, and now I
Yep.
believe he's on his third deal. So welcome, Scott.
Hey, thanks for having me, Hans.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Great to have you. So tell us a little bit about your background as an investor. You're now in the creative finance subject to world doing subject to deals and selling with lease option and contract for deed. But tell us about your background as a real estate investor.
Yeah, it all got started when I got married, and we could afford to keep our original house that I bought as a single guy. Um, having a rental property was something that I always thought would be really cool. I don't know really how that became of interest to me, but it did. Um, so when my wife and I bought upgraded our home, I said, oh, we're going to keep this thing and rent it out. And that was about 10 years ago. And I had that property for about 8 years before I decided I really want to get serious about investing, and and then picked up a duplex, and was thinking, okay, I'm just gonna be a landlord. I'm gonna, acquire these properties. Um, I was learning about the Burr method and thinking that was the way that I was going to build this rental portfolio. And little by little, you get into these networking events and circles, meet people, education. You learn about everything that there, is out there and possibilities. And now I've kind of found myself in the creative finance world, and it's fun.
Definitely. So what happened with your primary residence? Did you end up flipping that?
The primary is we still hold that as a rental. We've had that as just a regular rental property for 10 years now.
Got it. Okay. So you still hold that. Okay, for 10 years. Wow. And and you have what other rental properties do you hold currently?
I've got a duplex, um, and then it's a handful of these creative deals now.
Okay. On that topic, kind of jumping ahead here, how do you compare now you being a landlord to being a lien lord in your experience? What's it been like being a landlord and now in juxtaposition to being more of the lender?
Yeah, I have. So my first rental is in kind of a nice little hip area of St. Louis County, and that's been pretty easy. It's in good shape. I lived in it, so I made a lot of the repairs and upgrades while I was living there. Um, it's easy to rent. It's easy to manage. A little bit of repairs. It's a big yard, so that's kind of annoying on turnover.
Hmm.
But that's been good. And then I kind of swung the pendulum and bought this duplex in the city. It's a large old building, 1896. I have Section 8 tenants in there, and that involved a, a fairly moderate to somewhat extensive rehab on both of those sides. Um, I have very, very tenant-minded folks in there, um, who are, voucher holders, and that comes with some challenges at times. Other times it's great, but that has been the challenging part of landlording so far. And I live about 35 minutes away, so when I get little calls about trivial things, I just, I'd love to be there to get it knocked out, but I got to schedule it. It can be a challenge. Um, in that regard as well. And, self-managing comes with its own, challenges. Could get a property manager, but that's going to be another set of challenges as well that may not be more favorable.
Yeah.
And in comparison, so far with the lienlording, well, the deal that you kind of pulled me into the creative finance space by being an equity partner. I mean, that was the easiest deal I've ever done. Just bring some money to the table. I wasn't involved in the acquisition, the disposition. I was involved in some of the rehab, repairs. I wouldn't call it a rehab, but so that was super easy, and I just get my check every month. And my next one, once I sold that one on a lease option, or at least with an option, and so far that's been pretty good. That's just a few months into that deal. So it overall definitely less headaches with lien lording. I would definitely agree with that.
Right. Right. So tell us about the deal that we did together that you said I pulled you in on yeah, we met at a local investor meetup, and I had mentioned to you that we had a deal under contract. It was subject to that we'd be looking to sell and seller financing, and we were looking for an equity partner to bring some capital and then remain in the deal as a I think as a 50-50 partner in the deal.
Yeah.
And that piqued your interest, so we talked, and you wanted to get into the creative space, and so we hopped on that, and we used the vehicle of a revocable trust to
Yep.
structure that in terms of the closing. It was very simple, but effectively we're both 50-50 in the trust that holds the property, right? So
Right.
so tell us about tell us more about that one. Because you did well. Let me also just say that you are a handyman, a contractor yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and we hired you to do some of the work on the deal, which kind of sweetened the pot, I think, a little bit.
Yeah.
But tell us more about that one in terms of like capital investment, your ROI. I think I don't know exactly what your ROI is on it, but I think I have a good idea.
Yeah. Well, and to even preface that, so my first property, that was my primary, I had done a cash out refi in 2020, and that equity that I pulled out got me into the duplex, and then COVID hit. Prices and values skyrocketed. I ended up doing another cash out refi on that same original property and pulled out even more. And that night that we talked at the meetup, I was saying, yeah, I just bird out of this property, and I've got a check for, it's like $25,000, and it's burning a hole in my pocket. And you thought, well, interesting. We actually have a property that we're looking for an equity partner on, and you needed 25K. So, after just making the decision to go for it, that 25K kind of made the deal happen financially. As I recall, the arrears, it was a foreclosing property. I think 19K went to the arrears, and then the remaining 6 went to closing costs and anticipating the repairs and such. And so, once we sold that on seller financing, that buyer brought $15,000 down payment to the table, which came back to me. So then I was only 10K into the deal. And then I made a little bit as well on the renovation repairs. So a little less than 10 remaining in the deal. And I was looking at it last night. Based on our cash flow, I'll be back cash neutral in just under 3 years or so. and then the rest will be, just icing on the cake.
Right. So did you calculate the ROI on the money you have in the deal? Like, let's just call it
Yeah.
9K. What's the ROI on that?
I'm not sure.
Here,
You got
I
a
can calculate it
calculator?
real quick here.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's about $300 a month cash flow. It's a little bit less than that, but if we just take the annual cash flow of about $3,500 and then divide that by $9,000, it's a let's see, a 39% return.
Yeah.
And there's back end spread too on this one. So
Right.
if the buyer was to refinance us out, of course we would try to do everything we could to prevent that, or to refinance them ourselves, right? Or buy it back on a first right of refusal to buy back. There would be a
Yeah.
back end spread as well, but essentially it's a 39% return is nothing to scoff at, right? Because when we do these Subto deals ourselves, oftentimes we end up leaving some of our own capital in the deal, and our ROI might look something like 40% or whatever if we have to leave some money in the deal. But okay, cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Any other reflections on that particular transaction? Like you said, it was a Subto. The seller was behind. We had to get the 25K to catch up the payments and then do a little reno. And this is where we're looking at an equity partner right now. I'm talking to an equity partner. So this is how, just for anybody who might be watching this, Scott was wanting to get into the creative space. This was a foray for him to see how a deal is actually structured, a subject to deal, right, that we actually closed on, and then we turned around and we sold on seller financing. He's making nearly a 40% return on the deal as a partner, a 50 partner. So that kind of, would you say that proved the concepts for you since you were trying to get into the Subto space?
Yeah, you took the phrase out of my mouth. It was proof of concept, 100%. I had gotten interested in the creative financing, obviously prior to this, and I thought this is kind of the, you got to pay to play. Obviously, it's a great investment and a great return as well, but trying to think as someone trying to get into the space, that this is my way in. And so, yeah, proof of concept. Once I got that 15K down payment back, that was the moment, I guess you could say, was, wow, okay, let's do this again. Obviously, money isn't finite, so for me, I wasn't in the position to be a long-term equity partner, but a lot of people, who have great income, great W-2, who are looking to be in this position, it's a fantastic way to be an investor in just a different position. So after that, I thought, okay, well, how do I get into this even more? So invested into the coaching program, and invested into myself and education, and knew, obviously, being doing this deal with you, and being a part of the coaching program, that these are great people, highly ethical, very serious professionals, that this is the people that I want to be around as well, professionally. So,
Right.
and I'm still a part of that coaching program, and doing deals.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you bring up two good points. So, yeah, the first point there is that you are not the traditional equity partner after whom people like us might be seeking, because you yourself, you want to actually become the investor, the operator, and get those infinite ROIs yourself. And like you said, you're not sitting on an unlimited amount of cash to be an equity partner in a ton of deals. This was more for you to to be an equity partner on one deal, kind of squat up with somebody doing these, learn the trade a little bit there, at least prove the concept at least, and then go forward and be your own. So you're not so people so now like you are looking probably for long-term equity partners just as I am and anybody else in this space. So that's a good point
Yeah.
there. And I think a lot of people like us are probably in a similar situation. But I think it's just great to hear your story about that. And you did your due diligence on
Yeah.
me, and we were connected in the same community, so you didn't just jump in without any without foolhardily or anything like that. So I would advise
Correct.
anybody to make sure you do your due diligence, trust these folks, you see what they're doing, that they're reputable, that they have a reputation to lose if they don't perform, all that stuff. And then number two, that you invested in yourself, and in terms of a mentorship program, just really, that you're investing in yourself and you're finding a community. It's not just about getting into a program that's going to teach you the tricks of the trade, but that it's a community that you really trust the people. And that's how I feel too in the communities I'm a part of. The dollar value or whatever, like the paperwork that I get or whatever, is not as important as like the quality of the people that I'm trying to get in with. So I think that's
Yep.
because those relationships, like in our Subto realm, we don't do business with people with dubious people. Like it's like if you're gonna not make the mortgage payment or do something, there's a lot of trust in the seller financing world, and if you
Yeah.
don't prove yourself to be untrustworthy, you can burn a lot of bridges really quickly. So really trying to find these trustworthy folks who we're going to be doing business together. I'm sure you and me in the future, and just people you want to be around, and stuff like that. So.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you want to transition over to your second deal? Then
Sounds
tell us a
great.
little about that.
Yeah. So the second deal was the first one that I found the lead, negotiated the contract, saw it all the way through, and it was a man. I dove in head first on this one, and it was a tricky one. But again, thanks to the coaching program, I had uh, tons of guidance and advice and suggestions to get me taking one step forward. But this one was in a town called Lebanon, Missouri, and it's a small town of about 15,000 people, kind of right in the center of the state. And I found this lead from what you could call similar to an iBuyer, except they're not a buyer. They're just like an online presence for listing and purchasing. And what they did was they would start getting these these leads on distressed sellers that are on a timeline looking for cash deals. And since they weren't buying, they started connecting with investors to basically not even wholesale, but just send that lead over, and if you close, then we had agreed upon a compensation uh, amount for that. So that's where that came from. This was a foreclosure as well, pre-foreclosure. Um, this, I mean, this is the kind of when I really found out the power of subject to, where this young guy tried to sell his home. He was low equity. He only had owned it for about 2 years, um, and he had gotten divorced, and he lost his job, and so all of this surmounted in his life in the matter of a few months. And he lost his income, lost the ability to pay his mortgage. And so at some point he got the letter from the mortgage company saying, we're going to foreclose on your home. Here's your date. Here's your, what you need to do. So he started to try to sell it for sale by owner, listing it on Facebook and wherever he could. Um, couldn't sell it. He tried to get some realtors over to give him a sense of value. They said, well, we can list it for you. And he's like, I don't have time. I got to sell this thing now. So at the point when I spoke with him, I said, can you do this? Can you do this? Have you tried this? Have you, tried to get a family loan to kind of catch some things up? And he had really exhausted all of his options by that point. And he had no choice between letting the bank take it back or selling his property subject to. And so that's what we did. He was able to get a forbearance on his mortgage for, I think it was about 6 months. And that allowed him to kind of catch his breath, get his head above water, figure out the next step in his life. And it allowed him to stay in the property for a little bit longer until closing with us. So that was that's something that's at that point, there was a loan modification that started. Maybe we can get to that in a little bit, but so yeah, we made that deal happen. This town, I should add, is it's about 2.5 hours away from St. Louis, which is where we are. And I had still never been to that property. So this was not only my first deal, but it was completely remote, small town. So that's what I mean about diving in head first. And really, again, proof of concept. Once this was all said and done, if I can do this deal, I can do any deal.
Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. That's so you raised some good points that I want to highlight. And so number one was the lead source on this one was actually a kind of like a national wholesaler kind of website, kind of, right?
Yeah,
Something like that.
yeah,
Okay. So that's interesting in the first place that you found this unique lead source. It is unique. So, and then you were able to negotiate. How much did you end up paying the wholesaler for the deal, for the lead?
So it was a 2.5% commission that they had, that we had. Basically, they were, saying this is how we do our business. And so I said,
Okay.
what the hell? Let's give it a shot. So I think
Yeah.
it was about $2,600, and
Okay.
that's totally worth it.
Yeah. It's
They,
nothing. Yeah.
they put out the marketing, they captured that lead and sent it, over, and I still get those leads and pursue those and hope to close them. So it's it's
Great.
worth it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously depends on the deal, but yeah, a lot of times on these low equity deals, there's not a room for like a 20% down payment or entry fee or
Right.
30%. But so like a normal um like agent commission rate seems totally reasonable on a deal like this.
Mhm.
And then then let me ask about so you closed this deal totally remotely, kind of by choice, even though you could have driven down there, and that was out of
Right.
really determination to just do a deal remotely so that if you ever wanted to do another remote deal, it would just not be as like a huge problem for you to have to solve since you've already gone through the steps. Like you got Wi-Fi set up and security system set up,
Right.
things like that, right?
So I had a little comfort with that. I was super busy at the time with my contracting business. I just didn't have time to do that, and my wife and I have small kids, so it would just be kind of leaving. Uh, it would have been a challenge for not just me, but for a lot of people. So we just kept
Yep.
kept taking one step forward, one step at a time.
Right.
Um,
But you bought it subject to and left the loan in place, right? And negotiated with the seller directly. And what ended up happening to those arrears? Is it there? you said that the seller was able to get forbearance, which means they were not going to foreclose during this forbearance period of 6 months, but then there were these late payments or loan arrears, and whatever ended up happening to those. Did you have to end up catching those up after all, or did they do a partial claim? Or
So actually, we're about 30 days out from finding out the final result of that. My hunch is that we're in a trial period now, that it's a 3 month payment trial period. Going to make that last payment this month, and then they'll come back and say, all right, here's what we can do for you. And at that point, they'll either tell us, those arrears are probably going to be in the ballpark of 14,000, which is just those accruing missed payments for about 12 months. Actually, a little bit more, but so we'll see what they say. If I have to catch up those arrears, that'll be a gut punch, but
yeah,
that it is what it is at this point. But the loan is a 3.375% interest rate. A low payment of $679, and currently renting that out on a lease with an option at $1,200. So our cash flow is a little over $500, and I think let's see, I wrote down some notes here. So I'm about 14K into the deal now of my own cash. That's before the additional 14K in arrears. So hopefully they'll put that on the back end as a partial claim, and we'll just keep sailing forward. And get
right.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like if they, obviously I don't know, but if they've given you this trial period, and if you perform, or seller performs, then it seems like you should be good there. But so then if you're okay, 14K in, and that was all, you did a little bit of rehab, you had some holding costs, you had the fee. Did you pay anybody to place your tenant buyer, like a bird, like an agent or a bird dog, to like go show them the property or anything like that?
Yeah, so I found some boots on the ground. It was actually a local realtor who was just experiencing a little bit of a slowdown last fall and winter, and had agreed that, yeah, we can just, discuss an appropriate compensation plan. They did the initial walkthrough for me. They were my photographers. They were shooting me over contractor recommendations. We did bandit signs to resell it on financing locally, and so I had created those online, had them shipped down to them, and they placed them around town. So they were my boots on the ground. They were fantastic. I really could not have done this deal without them. That was tough, because I'm very I'm a contractor. I'm very hands-on. I like to control what I can, and I just really have limited control on a lot of things. But they were great, so I'm really glad to have found them.
Yes, that sounds fantastic. I mean, so you're getting about $500 cash flow. You collected a little bit of an option fee up front, right? How much did you collect in total of an option fee from your tenant buyer?
Yeah, so I think being a small town, it was a little bit tougher to sell on contract for deed immediately and get that 10% down. I was 10% down was 15K. So looking to get 150. I didn't get 15K. What I was able to get was 6K from a out of town military guy who was relocating and moving into town. And so we decided that instead of selling for contract for deed, we would just do a 12-month lease with an option, and that 6,000 was the option fee, which I collected in 2 different lump sums to make it a little more manageable for them. And also there were some repairs that I was kind of handing to them. So I knew they needed some money to do those repairs. So on that one, you know, 14K out front, I got 6 back, and you know, basically the remaining 8K that I left in the deal, I'd be back neutral in about 2 years. So
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So you were about $14,000 out of pocket total to do the deal, but then you're saying that you got $6,000 back on the option
yes,
fee for the option to purchase contract on the lease and option. So then really you were only $8,000 total out of pocket on the deal, right? So
hmm
$500 a month cash flow divide by $8,000. Let's see, hold on a second here. Well, you said about 2 years of
yeah, to get all that remaining 8 back. Yep.
yeah, it should be sooner than that, I think,
Well,
because you'll make about
yeah, it was about 18 months, and then I guess if you anticipate reserves, if you factor, you know, I think it was about 4,000 in reserves, then you'd get that money back in
I
24
see.
months.
Yeah,
So yeah.
I gotcha. Right. So, yeah, you're actually cash neutral sooner than that, probably around month 15 or 16 or 18 or whatever. That's not
hmm
bad though. That's a pretty good deal. I mean, that's the return on that is fantastic, right? Um well, awesome. That's I know that one was a bit of a struggle. I mean, because that was your first sole solo deal that you did by yourself, and you were busy during that time. I know you're
Yeah.
had a lot of contracting work around the holidays and whatnot, but you pushed through, you got it done, and it's a fantastic return, probably like a 60 or 70% ROI. You'll be cash neutral in a year and a half. You get to depreciate it as a rental, and then in 12 months, if the seller wants to, if the buyer wants to do seller financing, well, then you can go ahead and do that. And I'm not sure what your plans are. We don't. I kind of want to move on to the next deal, but basically, you
Sure.
can get a little bit more money down up front before you do the seller financing, but you have options, which is great. And he's doing the repairs, so that's fantastic. That's kind of the agreement with your tenant buyer is he's responsible for the repairs and maintenance and whatnot. Is that right?
Yep. That's right. Yep.
Okay.
So we
Yeah.
anticipate him, you know, purchasing it, contract for deed in month 13. They've been fantastic so far. So
Okay. That's awesome. That's
yep.
really good to hear, man.
Yeah.
That should be a banger. That's great.
Yeah. I'm excited about that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody's gonna scoff at $500 a month cash flow and like a 60 or 70% return on your money. So, and now you've proved the concept for yourself. So tell us about this new deal that you purchased or you have under contract or what?
Yeah. So this new one is I've closed on it. It's in St. Louis County. Um, this was another pre-foreclosure lead that I got from a local wholesaler. And again, you know, this one's probably even worse than the last one in terms of the seller and the distress that they were experiencing. Um, again, very low equity. Uh, they were they purchased it under 3 years ago. It's almost the same story, to be honest. Uh, in that first year, there was a divorce. Um, Subsequently, she had some job loss. Um, she had was then in foreclosure. Um, had that job loss. She tried to sell it on the market with an agent, and that failed. Well, that a contract fell through. Um, they got under contract again with a second buyer. That contract fell through. Then there was a third contract, which was actually a kind of a poorly attempted short sale, from what I gather. That fell through. So here we are, after all these failures on the MLS, 155 days on market, got her nothing but a piling up of mortgage payments that she couldn't afford. and a deadline that she was needing to meet. And the MLS and the market basically said it can't be done. So she was kind of at the end of the rope. Oh, and additionally, about a year ago, there was a fire in the property, and so she had it was mostly smoke damage, but she had an insurance claim and was living in a motel for about 4 or 5 months during that time. So she just went through the ringer, and by the end of it, she was talking to this wholesaler and just like saying, "Nobody can help me. I'm gonna just lose my house." And we had been at that property about a month and a half prior and said, "Well, we can do this, and here's how it would work. We'd purchase it subject to." And that weekend they had an open house. Another contract on the MLS was secured, and eventually that fell through. Came back to us, and um, her original loan balance 3 years ago was 191,000. Her mortgage balance 3 years later, with a partial claim that she had previously done, and her arrears was up to 197. So her loan did not go down, rather it went up, for 3 years. And then we found it was a surprise MSD lien of $1,400 that we found out the day before closing. So that was kind of another, expense. But
Sewer
when
lane. Yeah, sewer lane.
yeah, sewer lien.
Mhm.
So to put it in perspective, when she was talking to title, when during these other contracts, title company said, "Okay, well, you're going to have to come to the table with a check for, it was $13,000." And I think that's part of the reason that one fell through. She didn't have it. She couldn't do it.
Right.
She could not afford to sell her home. And selling it subject to, she came to the table with zero. She walked away with zero, especially because of that sewer lien. But she came to the table with nothing, and we took all of her debt from her. We paid her the highest dollar that anybody could. We purchased it for just under 200, and it's worth 200. So
Yeah.
it's a little uncomfortable thinking that, hey, I just bought an investment property
Yeah.
for $200,000, and cash buyers would never do that, for obvious reasons. But it's just kind of crazy to think that you can do these types of deals with low to no equity and cash flow, and turn it around and make money on it.
That's awesome. So you, just to kind of highlight a couple things there, you did find it through a wholesaler, and you were gonna pay them a fee for the lead, but you were working directly with the seller too.
Yes.
And you could have potentially found the deal, or somebody could have potentially found the deal by doing like a long day on market search, perhaps, or I don't know if it actually ever expired, but possibly an expired search or a long day on market search. But then eventually it went to pre-foreclosure, so that's um, another list that once it got to that stage, somebody could have potentially found a deal like this. If anybody's wondering where deals like this can be found, I think it's smart to be networking with wholesalers individually. Was this a wholesaler who you had previous contact with, or did you buy it from their marketing ad copy? How'd that go down?
Yeah, this was a perfect way to work with a wholesaler. It was somebody that I knew previously. They were familiar with the wholesaling creatively. Um, they they really didn't know how to close these deals. Wants to do these deals in the future, but for now, he'd rather just wholesale it, make a little bit of money. And it was fantastic because we actually just shook hands and said, "Hey, can we figure this out in the future?" And he said, "Yeah, let's figure it out later." So I just went under contract directly with the seller, and there was no assignment, there was no novation of contract, just a handshake, and we're I kept him updated along the way the whole time, just so he knows what's going on.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that he's willing to trust you with that, and you built the rapport to earn that trust. And yeah, that got you in, man. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And it's a nice looking property. I saw photos of it. It's gonna draw some attention. I bet you've already gotten some leads. I saw you're out there. You told me you're placing bandit signs to market for buyers.
Yep.
And what was your total out of pocket expense on this deal so far?
So at closing, I came to closing with about $2,300, and this loan is also, I guess you could say, in forbearance as well. Or it was in forbearance till the first of the year. Now it's February. So she's behind. She's in foreclosure. We made that effort. She made that effort to contact the bank and say this, I've been trying to sell the property, but, and she was going to stay and try to figure this out. So what can we do with the bank to kind of get her head above water? So she kind of handled all that as we were discussing what we were going to do. So that kind of took the date off the docket, and still we have not had to catch up the arrears. So that's again something that we're going to figure out what's going to happen there.
I see. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. That's an interesting tactic there, right? Close on it, and then figure out what to do with the arrears. I suppose if you do end up having to catch them up, how much is it behind in arrears?
That one's around 13,000, I think.
Okay, gotcha.
And when you add up the 2,300 with the 13,000, I'm hoping to get that amount back as a down
Right.
payment plus some.
Yeah.
Doing some repairs as well. So, hopefully I'll be cash neutral out of the gate with my next buyer.
Yes, on that particular property there, it's a $200,000 property. So being 15K in, you're under 10% in, like 10% of the value of the house. That'd be 20K. You're only 15K in if you do have to end up catching up those arrears. And so since it's a nice area, the chances of you getting 10% down, at least getting all your money back, or possibly being cash positive on a down payment,
Right.
are relatively good. So I mean, this seems like a good deal to me from that perspective. And in terms of cash flow, what do you expect there? What are the monthly payments going to be for the Subto debt, and what do you expect to get from a buyer on this?
Yeah. So the original mortgage payment was around 1,200. The seller had told me, and because of forced insurance and they're trying to catch up the escrow that was missed over the last year, the payment's now 1,330. So with 1,330 as my payment, I'm gonna try to sell this on contract for deed around 2,100, which will give me about $770 a month in cash flow, which would be fantastic.
That's awesome, man. That's fantastic cash flow. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a screamer of a deal. So good job. That's fantastic to hear. I didn't know you had already closed on this one. So congrats on that, by the way.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks. A week ago. Yeah. And the neat thing about this one is that it has a partially finished area in the basement. And in St. Louis, we have a lot of basements, and some of them are walkouts or have an egress window, which the county will then consider, if it's a finished space, that you can add a bedroom, for example. So there's already this finished space with a door to walk out, and there's just not a closet. So I'm just putting a few $1,000 into the property, adding this closet, so that'll elevate this from a 2-bedroom to a 3. So my rent payment or my monthly payment to my buyer can be higher to reflect market rent on a 3-bedroom. It's not, you know, I'm keeping it below a typical 3-bedroom just because one's in the basement, it's partially finished, not quite as nice as a 3-bed all on one level, but there is a full bath down there as well. So it's, you know, it's perfect. It'd be perfect for somebody, and pretty
Right.
good for most.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, if you can't, it's hard to find. It's hard to find a house these days with lack of inventory, and then for those who have a hard time getting qualified, I mean, it's an amazing opportunity. And so, yeah, I'm very optimistic for you on this one. This one should be even better than the last. Sounds like.
Yeah, and I'll say it feels really good to have my feet inside the property and my, you know, my hands doing the work. Um, you know,
Yeah.
we're gonna sand down the floors and refinish them because they were painted black with black paint, which was atrocious. The so we're gonna do some painting back to neutral colors.
Yeah.
You know, the seller had some strange taste, but we're gonna try to get that back to more,
Gotcha.
you know,
Yeah.
friendlier colors.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, I call it staging. Like any paint or touch ups, or if you need to do that, I call painting staging. It's the same thing to me. I'm trying to stage it for a buyer to come in there and imagine it to be their own without any like gross feelings. So you're just taking out all of the grossness out of the property and just creating a blank slate. And you're not gonna worry too much about what exact color goes on the wall or what exact finish of the hardwood. You're just gonna get in there, get it done probably, and get your buyer in there because they're likely gonna put a lot of love into the property themselves, right?
yep, yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that'll be a good one. Trying to think what else. Yeah, that's pretty much the numbers on that one.
Right. Yeah. No, great. I mean, it could be potentially infinite ROI. You're gonna have good cash flow, 700 plus probably, and very not like a ton of work on it for in terms of a turnaround, which we love. Means you can get on to your next deal quicker.
Yeah.
Any so let me ask any concluding thoughts. I guess for somebody trying to get into the creative space and just kind of struggling to get their first deal done. It's been really awesome getting to know you and seeing you slowly learn the creative space, and now you're doing your own deals. And I think you probably have are capable of having a vision for building a portfolio this way at this point now with a third one. So that's fantastic, man. I'm really pleased to see that. Makes me happy. And
Yeah.
any so let me just ask for I guess one final question would just be in terms of advice for somebody looking to get into their first subject to deal. Do you have any advice for somebody like that?
Um, I would just say, because as you know, when people know that you do these types of deals, people just have nothing but questions for you. Um, and really, you just have to decide, is this something that's a good fit for you? Um, you know, you have, I would say that the, definitely in the beginning, you know, it takes longer to find these types of deals. And so, you know, you may want to have more time available, um, to find these deals, to network with people, to develop the idea and vision of what this looks like for you. And really, it's tough to know what that looks like until you've done some of these, um, because you know, distressed sellers can be tough to work with. Um, you know, if you say I can buy your house cash, um, that's an easier transaction to do than, hey, I'm going to take over the payments on your loan, and we've got a series of paperwork and hoops to jump through together. And this is going to be a long-term relationship that we need to know and be on the same page of what the expectations are. And you know, so it's a different circle, and just
Right.
want to know what you're talking about. And really the best way is to get involved in a circle of folks that are doing these deals and that you can learn from, that you can talk to about how they go down. How do I negotiate with this person? And being in a coaching program was really the only way that for me to move forward on that. Uh, because you'll have a lot of questions and you need people that you trust, that you want to be like in this business to ask and get guidance. So yeah, that's a quick response to that. I mean, there's a lot, but yeah, it's been fun though. I should add also that not just learning how to purchase subject to and the dispo, the exit strategies for that, but learning what seller financing is in theory and what that can do for you as an investor. Because, in my mind, purchasing subject to is just one form of seller financing. It just has a mortgage in its place that you have to deal with that payment. But if somebody has a property free and clear, you're going to just buy it on seller financing as opposed to being subject to. So it really opened up a whole world on how to do deals with people. And I think it it elevates you as a business owner, as a professional. Some of the concepts seem tricky from the beginning, but they make a lot of sense once you really get familiar with them. And you can expand your business and really, build your portfolio, not just as a cash buyer or doing bird deals or buying MLS when you need that 20% down payment, 25% for a commercial loan every time you acquire a property. And you can be in these circles of investors and getting to know retiring landlords who are used to this cash flow, but they want to sell their property because they're just done being a landlord. But then you can elevate them to lienlord and buy it from them on financing, and everything is negotiable. Everything.
That's certainly the case. That's great, man. Well, that's a great place to leave it to leave it off with. Thanks so much for being willing to share your experience and journey into subject to in the creative space. And I guess lastly, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, maybe reach out for some more advice or to partner up on any potential deals that they might have. Is there a good email address for folks to reach out to you at?
Yeah, my email is upwardprops@gmail.com. And I'm on Facebook, Scott Winklemann, spelled WINKELMANN. Yeah, would love to help anybody who's trying to get this thing started or do some deals together.
Love it, man. Well, fantastic. Thank you again. It was a pleasure to hear all that. And I'm sure we'll be doing some deals more in the future. And
let's do it.
And yeah, and rock on. I hope you place a buyer in that third property, third deal quickly. I'm sure you will. So
awesome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thanks for all your guidance along the way.
Oh, you bet. All right, now take care. I'll talk to you.
Bye-bye.